All right, with us now on set is political reporter for RealClearPolitics, Caitlin Huey-Burns, and CBS News senior political editor, Steve Chaggaris. So good to see you guys.
Great to see you.
All right, so Donald Trump is making Obamacare the focal point of his campaign in these last couple of days. Clearly, there was some bad news last week, although the news, there's a little bit more nuance to the idea that the premiums are going up for some people. But this is the focal point for him right now. Is it resonating, Steve?
Well, what's good for Trump is that he's not talking about Donald Trump. He gets to talk about Obamacare. He gets to talk about Hillary Clinton. Is it resonating? What we've seen, as you show in that poll, that the numbers are tightening nationally. So something is working for Trump in the sense that I think there's less controversy swirling around him. He can talk about issues such as Obamacare. Keep in mind, Obamacare is an issue that that Americans are not fully behind. They're still split on Obamacare. So using this as a sledgehammer against Democrats and Hillary Clinton, not a bad idea on his part. And again, just looking to take attention away from himself, it's a good issue for him to sort of seize on at this point.
Caitlin, we've seen this throughout the campaign with Hillary Clinton. She gets this large lead, and then suddenly that diminishes. We saw it after the conventions. We're seeing it now when you look at the RealClearPolitics poll. It's something like 7 points down in 2 weeks, from 2 weeks ago. How has the ground game changed for both of these candidates?
Well, the ground game, I think, is really important specifically for Hillary Clinton, who is really depending on that in the final stretch to turn out voters. And that's an organization and a program that Donald Trump has so far shown that he's not really competing with at this point, relying much on the RNC to do that. I don't think any of us thought this was ever an 11-point race. I mean, I thought we always would see this come down to closer than some of the polls have suggested. But I do think that the Obamacare premium hikes combined with the FBI news, even though there are lots of questions still surrounding that, creates problems for Hillary Clinton insofar as we've seen during this cycle that whoever is in the news, in the spotlight that week, under controversy, tends to lag behind in the polls. And so to Steve's point, this is exactly the kind of scenario that the Donald Trump campaign wants to have for him in the last few days. But the Clinton campaign is arguing that they are focused on the ground game. They've made that investment in key states like North Carolina and Ohio, even Florida, where she is right now, to make up that ground.
So you're saying that the American voters are like, squirrel, squirrel, squirrel. No, but in all honesty here, 34% of likely voters in a recent poll said they're less likely to back Hillary Clinton after the FBI announcement. But I wonder, she has said, Steve, that this server issue is baked in already into the electorate. They sort of know this about her. They've been tracking this for quite some time right now. Donald Trump is arguing that his numbers are tightening because this occurred even before the FBI announcement. So is this having an effect on her numbers, or is it not? Is it just, as Caitlin is saying, it's just because he's not damaging himself?
There's definite wishful thinking on Hillary Clinton's part that this is baked in, and I think to a certain extent it is. I mean, you look at these numbers, and it is. But keep in mind, this just happened last Friday. It's only been a few days. Usually these stories take a little bit of time to sort of seep into voters' minds. And so I think we'll have a better sense closer to Election Day, later this week, maybe Monday, about how much of an effect it's going to have. I can tell you right now that the Clinton people are very, very concerned about this. And for them, they may publicly not be acting concerned about it and trying to talk about Jim Comey and the FBI director, but they are behind the scenes very concerned about what effect this is going to have on Democratic voters who might just figure, well, why should we go out and vote for her? We're not totally sold on her. And for those undecideds who are looking for a reason not to vote for her or to vote for Donald Trump. And so there is definite concern. There's a lot of damage control going on behind the scenes. The question is, I think we're going to see that later in this week, how much of a real effect this is going to have on her.
Speaking of real effect, one of the bells that the Clinton campaign keeps ringing is the ties that Trump allegedly has with Russia. The New York Times did an investigation, and they are saying that they're reporting that the FBI has not found direct links between the Trump campaign and with Russia. Does this really impact voters? How are they responding to these supposed links between Trump and Russia?
Well, I think this is something that certainly the Hillary Clinton campaign has been trying to push throughout this cycle, but specifically now. And yesterday, as Steve alluded to, the campaign held a call to really push that connection forward. I think for Democrats who are going to vote for her, they're going to vote for her anyway. Steve makes a really good point about these people who are undecided about who they're going to vote for or whether they'll vote at all. I think it's more the latter. Those who don't think that they'll vote for Trump, but when faced faced with the prospect of actually going into that voting box and voting for Hillary Clinton, that does make some Republicans and some independents a little bit uneasy. So this comes at a time where it's kind of reminding them of all of that, and we'll see how that shakes out.
So we have a little bit of sound of Clinton's campaign manager, Robby Mook, talking about this. I want to play that, and Steve, I'll ask you a question.
Dr. Comey said what he's doing with Hillary Clinton. He won't say what he's doing with Donald Trump, but what we're hearing from anonymous leaks is that they're investigating Donald Trump's ex-campaign manager over his connections to the Russians. They're investigating Carter Page, a gentleman who Donald Trump said was one of his foreign policy advisors.
This is a preliminary inquiry, not an investigation, to use the strict term.
Well, I'd like Director Comey to clarify all that. He had no problem going out and having a long press conference and editorializing about investigations into Secretary Clinton. I don't see why he can't come out and explain what's going on with Donald Trump.
All right, Steve, as you point out, Rena, the New York Times has not really found this connection that the Clinton camp is pushing, which is that there's a connection between Donald Trump and the Russians. But what's interesting to a lot of people is before this announcement, Donald Trump was attacking James Comey. Now that the announcement has come out that they're looking at Hillary, all of a sudden Trump says, well, he's not as bad of a guy as I thought. And now Hillary and her people are going after him. Is that going to affect at all? Is this a winning strategy to attack the director of the FBI, even though there are some Republicans who are coming out and saying they're not sure why he did this?
Here's the strategy, and it goes back to what Caitlin was saying, is if the spotlight is on you, that's not good, right? We have two candidates here who have high negatives, so you don't want the spotlight to be on you. So what they're doing here is they're saying, we're going to turn the spotlight on Jim Comey, and we're going to turn the spotlight on Donald Trump, even though it's a story about Hillary Clinton and her emails, right? This is the same thing they did when the WikiLeaks stuff came out, and she was asked directly at that third debate about WikiLeaks, and her answer, she didn't answer the question and went and talked about, well, these are stolen emails, and it was Russia hacking John Podesta's emails. It wasn't about her, it was about Russia, right? So it's about deflecting, and again, that's the strategy. It seems to work. If the spotlight's not on her, then that's a plus for her. At least that's the way they see it.
Is it though, Caitlin, I'm curious, the fact that they keep saying that the FBI should come out and release all this information, is that a game of chicken, or do they really feel confident that he's not going to come out with something that's going to be even more damaging?
Well, I think they're confident that either he's not going to come out with something that's more damaging, or that he's not going to come out with the information, so that pushing this forward, knowing that there are only 7 days left, knowing that the FBI can't possibly, even though they said they're working as quickly as they can't possibly end this before Tuesday. So this is certainly, part of that. But Steve's right. I think they're trying to, we heard her yesterday in Ohio, just address this issue off the bat, but also really focus again on Donald Trump and the temperament and character issue. And I think that's what we're going to be seeing over and over again.
And meanwhile, early voting has begun in so many states, largely favoring Democrats, we believe, in many of these states, in a lot of states. So it'll be interesting to see how turnout goes.
Caitlin, Huey-Burns, and Steve Chaggaris, always a pleasure, guys. Thank you.
Thanks.